Okay. Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Ellie. I'm Gill's daughter, and I'm going to be kind of navigating this evening's launch on Zoom. So I'll be sort of doing the technical side. As you may notice, and as you will have just heard, we are muting everyone for the time being. That's just so when we're speaking and when Amanda is speaking, everyone should be able to just see us and it won't interfere with the microphone too much. For those of you who don't know Zoom that well, I don't know if everyone can see everyone, but what I'd recommend, so you can see what's going on our screen, because we are going to be doing some screen sharing, just make sure you have it on speaker view. So on the top right hand corner, you should be able to choose between gallery view and speaker view. Sorry, I'm just admitting someone else. So what I would recommend is that you put it onto speaker view. So that means whoever's speaking, they will flash up on your screen. And just to make you aware, we are going to be, and we are right now, recording this evening's launch. So if you know someone who can't be here this evening and watch it live, then we will be able to share it. So they will be able to see it at a later date. I think I'm just admitting a few more people, and I think we should be good to go. Right, it is my, should we want to start now?
Yeah, I think so.
Fantastic. It is my pleasure to introduce Amanda Saint, who will be saying a few words. She is the founder of Retreat West Books, the company who are publishing A Song Inside, the book that you're all here to celebrate this evening. So Amanda, over to you.
Thanks very much, Ellie, and congratulations again, Gill, on the launch of your beautiful book. So Retreat West Books is a very tiny independent press that I started just 3 years ago now, and we won the Saboteur Award this year for the most innovative publisher, and I like to think that Gill's beautiful book is going to be able to make us win that prize again next year, because when it arrived on my laptop, I was so thrilled. Within pages, I knew that I wanted to publish this book. And when we finished the editing process a few months ago, I said to Gill when I sent the edits back to her, I feel like I had the privilege of knowing Sam just a little bit through reading this tribute that she's written to him, and also knowing the rest of the family in a little way too. So it's very nice to put a face to the name to Ellie this evening. So I won't whittle on about me, because this evening is all about Gill and her book about Sam. So I'll hand back now and just say that we're all very proud at Retreat West Books to be publishing this book.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for your very kind words. And I'm so happy that you are the people publishing the book, because you have been absolutely wonderful. So I would just like to say welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for all coming. It means so much to me to know that you're all here. It really does. I'm going to give you a very quick rundown of the evening. It's going to start with a reading from the book. Then there will be an interview with an author, Claire Dyer, and that was recorded at the weekend, so that it will be a video interview that you're seeing. And that will be followed by another reading, quite a nice short one, and then we will see a short film which is based on hours and hours of home video footage. And Simon, Sam's dad, has selflessly put himself through watching literally hours and hours of home videos to put together this lovely film. So I think you'll all enjoy that. And finally, we will unmute you and we will all drink a toast to Sam, who is the reason that we're here. Okay, so I'm going to start with a reading, and this comes from the very beginning of the book. It's dark outside my window, and the wind is singing in the trees. Soon the sky will start to glow at the horizon as it softens into dawn. It's a bit like life with you, Sam. Even in the pitch of night, I knew the light would come. I've written this for you. I've written it for me. It is my song of love to you. 5th of May 2014. I know exactly why she's here. They didn't say on the phone, but it'll be about the break-in and the burglar's DNA left smeared on the door handle. I watch through the sitting room window as she parks her car, springs from it despite being heavily pregnant, and walks purposefully across the gravel drive. She isn't in uniform, but in a denim skirt and white blouse. Perhaps their uniforms don't accommodate such an advanced bump. As I let her into the house, and she follows me into the kitchen, there is small talk. What a lovely home, she says. Have you been here long? Yes, over 20 years. I'm not sure where they've gone. I've just made us a cup of tea. I gesture towards 2 mugs sitting on the side. Would you like one? That would be lovely, she says. Is someone here with you? Yes, my partner, Paddy. Well, you might as well get in. Through the kitchen window, we see Paddy emerge from the garden shed. Let's go outside, I say. It's such a beautiful day. At the garden table, mug of tea in hand, I sit and wait for the young policewoman to speak. It is Bank Holiday Monday, a day of bright sunshine and impossible clarity. Colours around me shout and sing, blood-red geraniums in terracotta pots, fresh-cut grass as green as newly minted peas, wisteria hanging in swathes of smoky mauve. You have a son, she says, placing one hand on the swell of her unborn child. It is such a simple statement of fact, a lovely truth, but a strange one for this young woman to be telling me, sitting in my own garden beneath a sky of cobalt blue. It seems she doesn't expect an answer, for she's carrying on. But yes, I agree in my head, I have. She tells me his name too, Samuel Edward Roberts, she says. Yes, I agree in my head again. And then I realise, of course, not the burglary. It's about Sam's passport, stolen 10 days ago as he slept on a train from Bangkok to Chiang Mai. More words come, yet still there's no mention of the passport. I feel a sudden cool waft of foreboding, as fleeting as the shadow of an aeroplane passing before the sun. Then a strange thing happens. The words cease to belong to the young woman opposite me. They take on an embodiment all of their own. I can see and feel them floating on the garden air. He's travelling in Thailand, in my Hong Song province. Her words continue relentless. Suspending themselves in the space between us above the table, they hang in the air like an executioner's axe. There is no faltering, no change of pace or tone when she speaks again. Your son has been found dead in his hotel room. We've been contacted by the Thai police. There is silence as the words sway in front of me. Such an innocent conglomeration of consonants and vowels, but put together, such devastating words. Words which must not be allowed to turn that simple, lovely truth, you have a son, into a terrible lie. Everything becomes still and intense. The geraniums, the freshly mown lawn, the bird song all freeze for a moment, and all the while, my mind is whirring unbidden, arming itself with alternative explanation. Hotel room? Sam isn't in a hotel. He's in a bamboo hut on stilts, and he's in Pai, not the place she mentioned. No, I say, as suddenly it all becomes clear. It won't be Sam. It will be the person who stole his passport. His passport was found with his body, she says. I hear my voice insistent, yes, but it was stolen. His passport was stolen 10 days ago. It could be the stolen passport they found with someone else's body. She is patient, understanding perhaps why I need to believe this. Yes, I see. There's a number at the Foreign Office. Why don't you call it now? She gives me a name. Paddy fetches the phone. I have it in my hand. And sitting at the table in the sunshine, on this heavenly spring day, I make the call. But the person I want to talk to isn't there, and I find myself explaining about a body found in a hotel room in Thailand, and the police thinking it's my son, but my thinking it might be someone else with the passport that was stolen from my son when he was in Bangkok. I need them to check the date on the passport, I say. I wait as they do so. My mind is empty now, save for a strange hum, like static, fizzing and crackling in my ears. A voice cuts through. It tells me that the passport found with the body was issued on the 24th of April 2014. It is the replacement passport issued to Sam in Bangkok. Now there is nowhere to hide from those hideous words. Try as I might to push them away, to dismantle their letters, change their order, undo their meaning, I cannot, for they have set like concrete in the warm spring air. This woman is telling me my son's life is over. She's sitting there with a hand resting on her future, while in one sentence she takes mine away from me. I want the sky to dim and the birds to fall silent. I want leaves to wither and fall to the ground. I want the world to acknowledge that everything has changed forever. Thank you. So next, we are going to move on to the interview. As I say, this was recorded at the weekend, so I hope there won't be a delay. As Ellie, sorry.
Who on earth is Vidi?
As Ellie just gets
Oh, do you want me? Yeah.
it going.
So we're just going to share the screen to get it up.
Good evening, everyone, again, and I'm so pleased to be here with Gill on this very special occasion. My name is Claire Dyer, and I'm Gill's creative writing tutor, and I've had the immense privilege of working with Gill on this wonderful book over many months and years, and I'm so pleased to be here with her this evening celebrating the launch of the book. Gill has suggested that I ask her a few questions in the hope that her answers will give you all some background and information about the book. And so, Gill, thank you so much for agreeing to answer the questions that I want to pose to you. The first one of which is this memoir started out as a journal which you began writing very soon after Sam's tragic death. Can you tell us why you decided to translate your journal into a memoir and how you went about doing it?
Yes, I started writing this very soon after Sam died, and it was literally 2 days after we had been to a cremation in Thailand for him in a Buddhist temple. And I found myself awake in the early hours, and I found myself reaching for my iPad, and without any sort of conscious plan or thought, I started tapping away on it, and I found that I was writing. And once I'd started, I couldn't stop. And actually for the next 2 years, I just sat and tapped away on my iPad whenever and wherever I could. And I think it was my way of making what had happened real, because at that point, nothing felt real. I think it was also my way of processing everything, and not just Sam's death actually, but the last few years of his life too. There was so much that I needed to try to make sense of. I think if you're the parent of a child with serious mental health problems, like Sam had, you have a need to ask yourself questions, and they're not always very easy or comfortable questions. So my writing was part of that, and it was a really important part of my grieving. And it was also a record, because everything was a bit of a blur, to be honest. And I knew that I would get to the point where I would regret not actually being able to remember things. So I thought I would, so I kept going at it. And to be honest, more than anything, writing for me was a way to spend time with Sam. And I sort of locked myself away, and I spent hours and hours on end, with my writing, and therefore with Sam. So for the first 2 years, that writing was entirely for me. and I didn't have any plan to publish. And then a friend of mine who very tragically, 2 years after Sam died, her son died too. And we were talking about my writing, and actually she ended up reading my journal, and she wrote me a letter, and it was really the loveliest letter. And in it, she said that it had made her feel so much less alone. It felt as though she had been walking with someone holding her hand, walking alongside her. And she said, you know, I think maybe you should think about publishing. So I started to think about it, and the first thing I did actually was to try to find out whether anybody who knew anything about writing actually thought I could write. And I found a friend of a friend who lives in New Zealand, and she is an author herself, and she also runs a publishing company, and she's an editor, and she read it, and that was the first feedback I received. And she was very gentle and very encouraging, and I think that gave me the confidence to pursue the idea. So when I decided to carry on with that, I realised that this journal that I'd written for me was going to need a huge amount of work on it, because apart from anything else, it was enormously long and a bit rambling. And I realised I needed to turn it into something that actually told a story that other people might want to read. So I started signing up for lots of creative writing courses, and I learned so much about writing along the way. And I think one of the really important things that came out of it, and this is where the writing group has been so amazingly helpful too, is that it really helped me to develop a thicker skin. Because in the early days, when I showed people little bits of my writing, all I wanted was for them to say that it was amazing. And I didn't want it to be criticised or even critiqued, actually, because that almost felt like an attack on either me or Sam. And of course, you're not going to learn if you can't listen to what other people are telling you. And what emerged eventually was something that was part journal. It was partly an exploration of the past, and it was also a conversation with Sam. And that felt really important. And by the end of that very long process, I felt that what I had ended up with was both true to my experience of parenting and losing Sam, but was also stood alone under its own merits as a book. And I'm hoping I'm not deluded on that, but Amanda saw something in it that she thought was worth publishing, and so I really hope it will find a readership. So that was the very long and tortuous journey.
A very, very worthwhile one, and we're so glad that you made it. My second question of three, A Song Inside covers many difficult moments in your and Sam's lives and those of his close family, friends, but it's also an uplifting book about love and family. Can you tell us a bit about how you managed to convey the light and darker sides of Sam's life and his legacy?
That's a very good question, Claire. I think the short answer is with a lot of hard work. But it was something that I was aware of really from once I started trying to craft my journal into a book. I knew that if the book was unrelentingly dark, that people either wouldn't want to pick it up in the first place, or if they did pick it up, they wouldn't want to carry on reading. So one of the main things that helped me there was Sam himself, because as many people here tonight will know, Sam was very funny, and even as a little boy, he was quirky and highly entertaining, and he said and did many outrageous things. And in so many ways, he was a fairly impossible human being. He was so unbelievably contrary, but he was also immensely lovable. So there were lots of funny stories about Sam that I could draw on, and I knew they would provide some of the lightness. I can't pretend that there isn't a lot of difficult stuff in the book. There's a lot of pain and heartbreak. And that's not surprising because schizophrenia is a devastating illness, and to lose a child is a devastating loss. But it's not the whole story. And I think that's not the whole story as it comes across in my book, because there's also a huge amount of love in my book. And I know that because so many people who have read it in an early sort of form have said that more than anything, it's a love story, and love is uplifting. So I knew that I had to try to find this balance between dark and light. And I was particularly aware of that when I was in the final stages of sort of trying to craft this book. I knew that I couldn't really afford to leave the reader in a dark place for too long. So even though it is hard to read in places, and it is, I just want to reassure people that actually there is relief from that, and it won't be far away, because even the darkness is interspersed with light, and it will make you smile and even laugh, because that was Sam. He literally could take you from despair to laughter in a matter of seconds. And I suppose the other thing that lightens the book is that by the time I got to the end of it, I think a lot of the questions that I'd started with, I'd found answers to them. And I had reached a place that was quite close to acceptance. So I think actually there is quite a strong theme of hope throughout the book. Because ultimately it is a book about surviving loss, and I have survived losing Sam, and my incredibly brave family have survived it too. And I know a lot of people here tonight actually who have also lost children. And so although this book is very much my story and my version of Sam's story, it's also the story of so many other individuals and families who do survive loss, and live with it, and sometimes live with mental illness or alongside it, and all that I hope will come across as being, feeling like this is something that actually applies to everyone. So I hope it's a story worth telling.
I can vouch that it is. And my very final question, we obviously appreciate the courage that it's taken you to write the book and to speak about it the way you do. But in your last answer, you mentioned that you want the reach of the book to be bigger than just yourself and your family. And I know that your wish is for this book to help many other people. Can you describe your hopes for it in this regard?
Yes. Well, one very simple way that it might help others is by raising money for several mental health charities. All my royalties and 10% of Retreat West's royalties will be donated to 3 mental health charities. That's Sane, Rethink and Riverside Counselling Service. And so the more books that sell, the more money it will raise. So if you read the book and feel that it has something to offer, do please tell other people about it, and do please write reviews on Amazon and on Goodreads, because that does make a huge difference. The 2 other main hopes and the things that really have motivated me to put Sam's story and
mine and that of my family, which is a huge thing for me to do to them, is a really important thing is I want it to increase awareness and understanding of schizophrenia. It's such a terrible illness, and yet it's so rarely talked about, and it is also so often misunderstood. There are lots of sort of common misconceptions about it. One is that people with schizophrenia have a split personality, and actually they don't. A split personality is something entirely different. It's a different mental health condition, and it's actually very rare. In schizophrenia, if there is a split that exists, it's a split from reality. It's not a split between two separate identities. But I think this is one of the things that perpetuates the idea that people who suffer from schizophrenia are to be feared. And it's not helped by the fact that actually the main time that we seem to hear about schizophrenia mentioned in the media is in the context of some tragic news item about someone being attacked by a paranoid schizophrenic. And the truth is actually that very few people with schizophrenia are a danger to anyone but themselves. And there is research that shows that the actual odds of someone with schizophrenia killing a complete stranger in any year are 1 in 14 million. And yet I think most people, if asked, would think, oh yeah, that people with schizophrenia are dangerous. So that's the story we hear, but the story we don't hear is that 1 in 100 young men and women the whole world over are struck down with this really devastating illness in their teens and early adulthood. And most of them, like Sam, are brave, good people who are struggling to live not only with a really devastating illness, but with the often really crushing side effects of antipsychotic medication. So what I really hope is that if people read my book and get to know Sam a little, they might understand schizophrenia better, and they might see it differently, and most importantly see that there is an individual behind every diagnosis. Because Sam, to me and to anyone who knew Sam, he wasn't a schizophrenic, he was Sam. And schizophrenia was a very small part of the whole person he was. My second hope is that my book might help people facing loss. And that's because, although this story is obviously a very personal one, and it's about Sam and it's about me, but actually at its heart it's about loss, which means it could be about any one of us, because loss is all around us. I mean, particularly at the moment in this time of COVID-19. But, it is a part of each of our lives, and it starts from the moment we leave the womb, which is so wonderfully containing. It's a little sanctuary and everything is muffled and softened. And when we come out into the world, it's a very different world, and it's a harsh world with hard edges and glaring lights and loud noises. And that's our very first time that we have to start adjusting to loss, because it is a loss. And we are going to face losses throughout our lives. And I'm not just talking about bereavement. There are so many losses, hurts, disappointments, things not going our way. I could go on and list all the losses, but the fact is that we are going to face loss. And the challenge for us is to work out how to negotiate it, which is a lot harder than it sounds, because loss it's not just about sadness. It's actually about some quite difficult feelings too, like anger and guilt and envy and bitterness. And if we don't actually allow ourselves to feel those difficult feelings and work through them, you know, there's a chance that we end up shaped by them without even realizing that's what's happened to us, and that can change the shape of our lives too. So we each have to find our own way through loss. There is no right or wrong way. There is no one way. But I think the one thing I do think is important is that we do need to face pain. And I think for me, my writing was a way to actually face the pain head on. And it was by processing rather than trying to avoid all that pain and all that sadness and all the difficult feelings, that I was able to get to a place where I could accept that Sam had died, and I think I was then able to move, not on, because that suggests leaving Sam behind, but I was able to move forward and take him with me. So I would really love to think that my book will resonate with other people, that it might help people to feel a little bit less alone, that it might help someone to understand what's happening to them or to someone else. And more than anything, that it might start conversations. We don't talk enough about death and about mental illness. And I hope this book might start conversations about those difficult subjects.
I'm sure it will, Gill, and thank you so much for your very honest answers. I know everybody here will be, like I am, choked to have heard you speak so eloquently and compassionately about your family, Sam, and the book. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much for asking me such really, really interesting and penetrating questions that really did get to the heart of the book and why I've written it. So thank you so much.
Hello, it's back to us again. I'm so sorry, you're getting so much of me tonight. And, we are now going to move on to the second reading. This comes from much later in the book, where I'm describing thinking about Sam and picturing him at different points through his life. We look as though we've got a beam of sun,
Yeah.
sort of.
I quite like it.
Okay, that's fine. So, and I'm just going to select three little extracts in which I picture him at those different times. So the first, I see him as a small boy. He's in the egg and spoon race at Dolphin Nursery Sports Day, running with one arm stretched out ahead of him, the other tucked behind and resting in the small of his back. He's totally focused on keeping the egg on the spoon as his little legs power beneath him. He's ahead of the others and almost at the finish line when the egg parts company with the spoon. I see him hesitate for a second as he weighs up the options. He runs on without the egg. He's not that interested in the detail. He'd rather have the glory of being first across the line. Now he's 19. He has returned from his travels and cut off his blonde dreadlocks. He keeps them in the bag beneath his bed. His hair is cropped close to his head. His eyes are still bright, but there is a hint of mania in the brightness and something closed off about him. It's as though he has drawn a veil across, that he's living almost exclusively inside his head now. I see us on a walk in the country, his skinny body tight with pent-up energy, which he discharges with little jumps and skips. He resists my attempts at normal conversation, brushing me off with irritable one-word responses. Instead, he stops to talk to the trees, wrapping their trunks in a tight embrace, looking skywards between their waving branches before releasing his clasp and taking off again, with giant bouncing strides and wildly swinging arms. This new Sam walks with a different gait, pushing himself off with each step as though launching himself into a private world of wonder and promise. Finally, I picture him the last time I set eyes on him. He looks well again. He's been on good form for the last 8 months, funny, engaged, and gradually forgiving us for our part in his difficult last few years. He's excited about his trip to Thailand and eager to get going. He promises to stay in touch, to let us know when he arrives, to stay safe. We hug. He pulls back, looks at me for one last time and smiles his long, slow smile. And then he's off, threading his way through the crowds in the departure area. I see this young man I love so much, striding purposefully towards his next adventure. It's hard to let him go, but I know I must. He doesn't look back. So next we are going to move on to the film, and yes, the film. And after that, as I say, we will raise a glass to Sam. It's a very short film, but it's a very lovely one. I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming. Thank you to my amazing family. I must just quickly say thank you to Ellie because she's been fantastically supportive over this whole thing. And finally, what I would really like to do is for us all to raise a glass and to remember Sam. Can we unmute everyone else? Yes.
You can't unmute.
Oh, can't we?
Oh,
They can unmute themselves.
oh wait, allow participants. Oh. If everyone wants to unmute themselves.
There we are. Congratulations.
Hey everyone, we're not going to keep you through too much agony now. Thank you so much again for coming, and we are going to end the meeting now. So thank you and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.